As you entered the amphitheater, you should have received a question card. If you did not receive one, please feel free to raise your hand at any point, and a staff member will bring one over to you. If you fill out the question card with as much information as possible, with all of your contact information completed, if we're not able to get to your question today, we will respond to you later as long as we have your contact information and it's legible to our staff. As a brief run of show, we will hear from the congressman and a few guest speakers. But first, I would like to recognize a few special guests that have joined us today. First, we have East Bay Regional Parks Board Director Colin Coffey. We also have East Bay Regional Parks Board Member Dennis Waspy. And we have the Mayor of Oakley, Shannon Shaw. I'll now turn it over to Wyatt Moore, East Bay Regional Parks naturalist, to welcome you to Big Break and introduce the congressman.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to Big Break today. We really, really appreciate it. For those of you that may not know, Big Break is part of East Bay Regional Park District. We are the largest regional park district in North America. So between Contra Costa and Alameda County, we have about 73 parks, over 126,000 acres of land, over 1,300 miles of trail, and 55 miles of shoreline. And our main goal is to conserve and preserve the natural and cultural resources of the East Bay, which there are many. And so today, focusing on the environment and things happening, it's very prevalent. So you all being here is really helping us feed into our overall mission. One of my favorite things about East Bay Regional Park District is that not only the amount of parks that there are and their location, which are accessible and easy to get to, but really whatever you like to do outside, we offer it. So if you like hiking, biking, horseback riding, swimming, fishing, canoeing, kayaking, you name it, the opportunity is here. So what we always ask is just come out and enjoy. That's why we're here. So however you like to engage in nature, we are here welcoming you and excited to be on that journey with you. If you have time today after the event, our visitor center is open. We have a special event today. The Quilters Guild is actually presenting in the visitor center. So they have some beautiful quilts that they made, and they're promoting their show that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So definitely go by, check it out, ask questions. There's beautiful art pieces in the visitor center right now. And also, if at any point you have any questions about the park, about Big Break, about all of our programs that we're doing, please feel free to come find me. I'd love to talk to you more about all that we can do to support you all enjoying your regional park. So thanks for being here, everyone. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Wyatt. I'll now turn it over to the congressman.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Kaylee. I also just want to thank all our wonderful staff. And if you could raise your hands. Janessa back here is our district director. Ryan in the back is our deputy district director. Way to go, Lance Corporal. He's a former Marine. He just gave me instructions on how to get in here, so I was a little late. But it was my fault. We like to tease each other. And I really want to thank, and to board president, Mr. Coffey, you're wondering where my East Bay Regional Park District hat is? It's, yes, it's windy. It's right by the hook on my garage door that I walked by on the way out here. Right next to the state park hat. I wore the state park hat to one of these just to give a bad time, and he immediately gave me an East Bay Regional Park hat. Not that there are sibling rivalries in the park business. So anyways, it's delightful to be here. This is our, how many? 236th town hall since I entered Congress. Thank you. I'm told by leadership it's the most by any member of Congress, so that's 535 members across the country. Thank you. And it does take a lot of work, so I appreciate not only my staff, but the East Regional Park District, the city staff, the police departments. Thank you, officers. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you for your service. So I'll just be brief. I'm going to take questions on anything you want when we get through with the panel. This is obviously an environmental town hall. Thank you to CCTV, Contra Costa TV, for videoing this, and it's live streamed now, but it'll be available on their sites and on our site if you want to go back and look at it, because we knew there are a lot of people in Central County and in Alameda, which I represent part of, who would like to participate. This is the first of 4 town halls we'll do during what's called our August recess. So for the next 4 weeks, I will be largely in the district out talking to people, and then we'll go back after Labor Day. Just briefly, it's been a very difficult time the last 6 months since the beginning of this session. I can answer questions on the big, I refer to it as ugly bill, lots of cuts to environmental programs, lots of attacks, in my belief, on really good historic environmental protection rules. We were just talking about the Clean Air Act, and as somebody who was on the California Air Resources Board, which has been under attack, I was appointed by 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, which I like to remind my Republican colleagues of. Frequently, they don't know who Pete Wilson was, but they remember Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, it's funny. The Wall Street Journal congressional reporter a couple months ago came up to me in the hallways, and she goes, "You used to be a Republican?" I said, "Yeah, there used to be liberal Republicans, really good environmental Republicans. John Nedgley, who the Antioch Bridge is named after, was one of my mentors. Wonderful, wonderful former district attorney in Contra Costa, and became a state senator, and was one of the key people in the California Clean Air Act." So, you know, roles changed, but she walked up and she says, "You used to be a Republican?" I said, "Yeah, Pete Wilson appointed me to the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors," and this is a Wall Street Journal reporter. She goes, "Who's Pete Wilson?" And I'm like, a little message, you know, about the Romans. Sic transit gloria, all fame is fleeting. And I said, well, he was a U.S. Senator, Mayor of San Diego, Governor of California. So anyways, all of that is that, you know, this is the push and pull of American democracy. Unfortunately, right now we're particularly split. But on environmental issues, it's good for everybody when we do them right. And the California Clean Air Act requires the board to look at cost benefits, and they're really good to the economy and to the environment, but it includes public health impacts, which is really beautifully written. So all of these things have to be thoughtful, and the good, when these organizations are functioning, legislative bodies, we realize that we're very different. I always tell people at town halls, I have a good friend, Virginia Fox, who's from North Carolina, very conservative, close to the current president. She likes to introduce me to new Republicans as Mrs. DeSaulnier, our favorite socialist from San Francisco. Isn't that great? And I always respond the same way. I said, by your standards, Virginia, I'm a Trotskyite. And then there's a sort of blank look. But filters, Mark, filters. But my point being, I always... In a country as big as us, I like to say to Virginia, you couldn't get elected in my district, I couldn't get elected in yours. So how do we figure out how to be principled but work together for the greater good? And when the Congress works, like with the U.S. Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, that's the way we work. Right now, we're not, quite frankly, and it's a struggle. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that, but we will have 3 more town halls in the next 4 weeks, so avail yourself of those opportunities, and we're always happy to answer questions. We've won 2 awards in our office for constituent outreach by a bipartisan organization, the Congressional Management Foundation, and we're very proud of that. One little caveat, we have the same staff that we had before the election, but we've gone from just one measurement, 1,000 emails a week, to 7,000 to 10,000 emails a week. So we respond to all of those, but it takes a lot of work for the same staff, so be kind to the staff. So with that, I'll turn it back to our wonderful MC.
Thank you, Congressman. We'll now hear from Director John Mercurio, Board President of the East Bay Regional Park District. John, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. Once again, I want to welcome you all to Big Break Regional Shoreline, to what I hear is Representative DeSaulnier's first environmental town hall of 2025. So happy to be part of that. My name is John Mercurio. I'm board president of the East Bay Regional Park District, and I represent Ward 6, which is central and southern Contra Costa County, with a little piece that kind of goes out to Discovery Bay. So big area, and I'm happy to be with all of you today. And maybe afterwards I can meet a few of you, or all of you, if you really want to do that. So you heard a little bit about the Park District from Supervising Naturalist Wyatt Moore a minute ago. So thank you to Wyatt and his staff for making a lot of the on-the-ground arrangements here today. And we really appreciate that because we can't just show up in a meadow and have a conversation. It needs to be like this. So anyway, they gave me this mic today, and I hope they don't regret it, but I get to say a few things. I want to talk a little bit about the Park District's climate resilience work. The Park District, as Wyatt mentioned, we steward 55 miles of the shoreline extending from southern Alameda County all the way to here, basically. So just think about that area going up the shoreline of the bay and turning through Carquinez Strait and coming all the way through here. We're responsible for stewarding a whole big chunk of that land and that water. And it's nearly all of it is vulnerable to sea level rise. So think about the magnitude of that issue to deal with. It's pretty mind-boggling. But recognizing, this impact from climate change, the Park District has incorporated adaptive design into all the projects that we do that are right along the shoreline, and including the various wetland restoration projects that we do. But not to worry, those of you who are trail users, we never forget about the trails, the Bay Trail. They are factored into the plans as well, and so we have ways to either raise the trail a bit, or a plan for like retreating the trail inland and putting it somewhere else. We've already thought of that. So depending on how fast it happens, we can react and we can adapt. And as I said, sea level rise is a big threat, and this is almost ground zero, really. I mean, there's a lot of impacts that are going to happen right here at Big Break behind me, and even coming up this way. We have done a study, and we're realizing that by 2050, it's highly likely that some of the park habitats are going to be impacted, as well as some of the infrastructure here. So we will be working to figure out how to adapt to all that. And we have an actual plan, climate adaptation study and a plan. And as I understand it, probably some of you were involved in the development of that plan. So we thank you for that input as well. So the plan that we would implement would be a way to prepare the park infrastructure and vegetation to rising water levels. The project would be funded by voter-approved Park District Measure WW funds and the Delta Conservancy. So we'd also like to thank those that have helped us fund these things for their support. And finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our efforts in the area of fire. We all, the Park District plays a critical role in wildfire mitigation. So I think I don't have to mention, but I will. Southern California, what a wake-up call that was. Not that we weren't doing anything before that, but it just reinforces, and it kind of helps us in a way because it makes the issue kind of more front and center for everyone in California, even those that weren't directly affected. So we consider it to be a continuing public safety emergency here now. It's risen to that level. So we're strongly committed to reducing wildfire risks by managing vegetation and with professionally trained fire and stewardship staff, and we have specialized equipment to do that work, so we're set up for that. In the last 6 years, the number of Park District Fire Department personnel focused on vegetation management has grown from 6 to 23. So our fire department isn't just reactive, where we go out and put out fires when they start. We have staff that go out there and try to prevent the fires from starting in the first place by dealing with the excess vegetation that exists in some areas. Particularly, I think the highest risk area would be, the Oakland Berkeley Hills area, and so we have an approach to that. And the effort that we've done on that, it's more than tripled in recent years, allowing us to treat more acreage, than we had been doing before. So again, that issue of funding, it's funded from external grants from agencies like Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and CAL FIRE, and as well as some local tax funding. And I believe we get those grants because the grantors know that we're going to use that wisely, that we know what we're doing, and we have a plan, and the money will be spent wisely for safety purposes. So I want to thank all of you for being here to learn about our ever-evolving environment. The only thing I want to ask here, keep coming to the parks. Keep talking about the parks and drag your friends out to the parks if they need to be dragged, and show them the more folks that are out here, the more real life stewards that we have to defend these areas and help us out. So I guess that's it for my turn.
Thank you so much, John. I'm now going to turn it over. I'll now turn it over to Damian Hardman Saldana, Principal Planner with the Contra Costa Department of Conservation and Development. Damian, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. As she said, I'm Damian Hardman Saldana with the County Department of Conservation and Development. You might be like, well, what's that department? We are a pretty broad department, so just in general, so if you're the public and want to know what we do, if you need a building permit for the unincorporated part of the county, you have to come through our office. We even contract out with 5 other cities within the county that do those building permit services. We are also the planning department, so if people want to build things, do subdivisions, do commercial development, large additions to your home, they have to come through our office. You might think, well, what's our role in the environment beyond just new development? We are also looking at the bigger picture of everything as well as planners. So the biggest thing we do is we have what's called the County General Plan, and it's a planning document if you're not familiar with it. Every city and every agency has to have a general plan. It basically is the vision of how we are going to move forward with development, even existing development and new development. And we're responsible for that. As part of that for the environment, our general plan was just recently adopted towards the end of 2024. It was just updated, a huge update, took several years, was a amazing outreach process, hundreds of public meetings over those years. And we also adopted what's called our Climate Action Plan. And we had our first Climate Action Plan was adopted in 2015, and we went through a major update with that Climate Action Plan. And my responsibility is to actually implement a lot of the measures in the Climate Action Plan related to the built environment. So you might think, well, what does that mean? One of the big things in our county has been an issue on a health perspective that's tied to the environment is asthma. We actually have pretty high asthma rates and emergency department people going to the ER because of asthma. And it's mostly because of the northern waterfront area and asthma and air quality. So one of those things we try to do is how do we fix that, right? How do we address environmental concerns? How do we address people's asthma inside the home? We're trying to actually provide incentives so people can do the right decisions and educate them about how to mitigate your asthma in the home. And I'm actually an example of that. I grew up in the Bay Area, had asthma my whole life, and then actually did a home retrofit to my home. I said, hey, I'm living and breathing this. Let me do it for myself. And I can say I haven't picked up an asthma inhaler in 8 years. Okay? So it's real out there, and this stuff works. And it's like you have to have the story, right? And you have to understand your circumstances. So doing things to your home, like getting rid of a gas burning furnace or a gas burning stove, which we all love, can actually mitigate your asthma quite quite substantially. And there are studies out there, particularly with children with childhood asthma. If you can get rid of those things in the home, they can substantially improve health outcomes for people who have asthma. So part of me here today is to educate some of you that may not be aware of some of those things, but that's some of the stuff we're doing. We've got pilot programs going on from Keller Canyon mitigation funding through our District 5 Supervisor's Office, where we're doing retrofits to people's homes for trying to get them to do clean heating and cooling systems that are better for indoor air quality and whatnot. So we're looking at different avenues on how to address that across the built environment. The County Board of Supervisors also adopted a more stringent energy efficiency standards for new building development, those kinds of things. We also have the Habitat Conservancy, which is also another part of our department that manages, new development. We collect fees to help protect habitat, areas like this beautiful area, to protect habitat that's endangered as well. There are lots of things we're still doing, even though we've had some challenges with getting federal funding in the recent months, as you've heard. So we are pivoting and working with the state as much as possible to leverage as many resources to continue to meet our climate action plan goals. And we're really trying to help clean the environment. So when you think about the environment, think about making sure you use your compost bin, doing all the right things. Try to think about what's cost effective for your reality. Look for incentives. Our County Department of Conservation and Development website does have resources for any energy efficiency improvements. There's a lot out there. We're doing, like I said, pilot programs as well. We're looking at trying to adopt a clean energy roadmap as part of our climate action plan to help meet those goals. And I can go on for a really long time about a lot of this stuff. So I will stop there. And I hope this stuff is, educational. You learned something today. That's really my goal when I come out and do these kind of events. So appreciate your time coming out here on a Saturday to learn about some of the stuff we're doing. And I'll thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Damien. And before I turn it over to our next speaker, I'll just make a quick announcement. If you have a completed question card, please feel free to raise that in the air right now, and one of our staff members will come around and collect that from you. All right, but before we get to the Q&A, we do have one more speaker. I will now turn it over to Viet Tran with the Bay Area Air District. Viet, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kaylee, and thank you, Congressman, for having the Air District at your town hall. Good morning, everyone. Viet Tran. I'm Deputy Executive Officer, Public Affairs at the Bay Area Air District. We serve the 9 counties of the Bay Area, over 100 cities, and 7.5 million constituents. Many of you likely know us for Spare the Air, but we also do so much more, and so I'm pleased to be able to share with you some of what we do. I'm also joined by Miss Lindsay Mangali, who is our Senior Air Quality Technician at the Air District, celebrating her 10 years at the Air District this year. And so we're grateful, and many of you met Lindsay as you came in this morning, and she was at our table sharing with you Spare the Air and our clean air programs, our clean heat programs, our Clean Cars for All program, and our mission is to ensure healthy, breathing, clean air for our 9-county Bay Area. And through that, we do compliance and enforcement. We do meteorology and measurements. We also do permitting and engineering, and we do communications and legislative government relations, the areas that I have the purview over. But really quickly, I just want to share with you some of the rule development that we're doing. We're governed by a 24-member board of directors, of which the Congressman was a member of our board for a very long time.
Long time ago.
And as you heard from the Congressman, he was appointed by 3 governors to the California Air Resources Board and representing the air districts during his time as a member of our board when he was here in Contra Costa serving locally. Our board is made up of, again, 24 elected officials. We also have nearly 500 staff that are dedicated to our mission and our vision and our core values of ensuring clean air and a healthy breathing environment for all of the Bay Area. And I want to highlight the rule development that I just mentioned earlier that our board approved. So our board voted on a unprecedented first-in-the-nation rule, Rules 94, 96 amendments, which will require the phase-out at point of sale, not immediate, and so you don't have to get rid of all of your gas furnaces and gas water heaters. But on 2027, gas water heaters will be phased out for point of sale. As Mr. Hartman Saldana mentioned, right, that those water heaters, those gas furnaces, are leading contributors to NOx, right, nitrogen oxide. And so with the elimination of those appliances and switching to electric, that's eliminating the NOx. And so it is a purely NOx rule, and NOx, as many of you know, will exacerbate asthma and lead to many other respiratory ailments and conditions, and emphysema and bronchitis and so much more. And so we're very proud of that rule. We ask that you stay in touch with us on our website and monitor the implementation of those two rules. We're working with not only community, but also contractors, property owners, renters to ensure that everyone is ready for the 2027, 2029 implementation. So 2027 for gas water heaters, and then 2029 will be the gas furnaces, gas-powered furnaces. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out to our website. I'll also be available afterwards to give you my card and give you additional information on those rules. Another rule that I wanted to share with all of you is the board passed Rule 6.5 many years ago, and you may have seen on the news that Chevron and Martinez Refining Company, MRC, both sued the Air District, took us to court, and said they couldn't implement these rules to reduce the particulate matter 2.5 emissions from their what's known as the fluidized catalytic cracking units. For those in the industry, you know that's the FCCU, and for those who really work in it, you know it's called the cat cracker, right? And so MRC and Chevron sued us. They dropped their lawsuit, and we ended in a settlement of upwards of $137.5 million. Upwards of $137 million. $20 million from Chevron for an air quality fund, $20 million in unresolved penalties. MRC agreed to the rules, and so they paid for our attorney's fees. But the bulk of that settlement really spoke loud and clear that, again, the Bay Area Air District, with our unprecedented rule, was fought in court. They dropped their lawsuit, they paid 100% of the attorney's fees, and they're going to come into compliance. And we're very proud of our board, we're proud of our staff for fighting for such an unprecedented first-in-nation rule that the refiners said they initially couldn't do, but now they will do. So we're very proud of that. I want to also share with you that in addition to the rules, we also do compliance and enforcement, of which the division that Ms. Mangali works in. And so we ensure that the refineries and other stationary sources of pollution are in compliance with our regulations, with our permit conditions. We send a staff of inspectors to do routine and surprise inspections at these stationary sources. We also do source testing and monitoring of our sources of pollution. And all of these inspection reports, all of these monitoring reports are available on our website. And while I'm on the topic of our website, likely many of you, if not most of you or all of you, are signed up for Spare the Air. But this is a new program that I want to share with all of you. I'm very excited about. Is we now have an incident reporting notification. So any incident reporting, air quality incident notifications, you can now sign up for. We just started that program last June, and we've activated it over 24 times to share with our communities. And you can sign up specifically for your area. It's the 9 counties. You can click on one. You can click on all 9. You can choose text message. You can choose getting an email. You can choose both. But it's something we're very proud of. And again, it's to help. It's not to replace the Contra Costa County warning system, but it's to supplement and be another avenue of information and notification for all of you. And then finally, the Air District does incentives programming to ensure that there are funds in our communities. You saw the programs that Ms. Mangali had at our table in the front for Clean Cars for All. But I want to thank Congressman DeSaulnier for fighting for $15 million from the Federal Highway Administration for getting 1,600 clean EV charging ports in the Bay Area, 1,600 new ports, and we want to thank the congressman for that. Thank you, Congressman. And finally, thank you for always being so gracious. As I mentioned, I also manage the legislative government relations for the Air District, and the congressman, every time we go to D.C., as busy as he is, he still makes time to meet with Dr. Fine, my boss, our executive officer, our board members, and myself, and our legislative team. And so we thank you, Congressman, for your commitment to clean air and to the Air District. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. We'll now move into the Q&A portion of the event. So if you'd like to stay around for the Q&A, you're more than welcome to do so. We also still have our resource fair. Yes, we do have a special guest. Mr. Tom Torlikson is here with us.
I have some comments about Tom at the end, so. All right, I'll do it now, Tom. Thank you, May. That's Mrs. Torlikson. I want to take a moment because Tom was a wonderful mentor, colleague. A former teacher. Well, he's always been a teacher who was on the city council in Antioch, was on the board of supervisors with me. He used to sit to the right of me. Used to tease him, but if you were in the audience, he was to the left of me. And then he went to the state assembly and the state senate, and then he became the first Contra Costan ever elected to statewide office, to one of the most important statewide offices. And the person who followed him, Tony Thurmond, was the second. But Tom was the first Contra Costan ever elected to statewide office in California. A wonderful, wonderful public servant. And why we're sitting right here today in particular was Tom's vision as a county supervisor along with the Park District. So we owe so much to people who did serve in office, but I did want to, where's the resolution? I wanted to acknowledge him, and I'm so grateful that he was able to come because we weren't sure, so thank you, May. But last week I introduced into the congressional record a House of Representatives, what we call a CR, congressional record, honoring the service of Tom Torlikson, and I will present this on the floor when we go back. So Tom, thank you for your service. You're amazing. And he's walked more precincts and run more mile of East Bay Regional Park trails than anyone ever. I've tried to keep up with him walking precincts. So thank you again, Tom, and thank you all for giving me a moment to recognize really a wonderful, great public servant from Contra Costa County, Tom Torlikson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Torlikson, for joining us here today. It's an honor to have you here. And thank you, Congressman. We will now move into the Q&A portion of the event. As a reminder, if you have a completed question card, you can still raise that in the air and one of our staff members will come around. Or if you need a question card to fill out, you can also do that at this time. Our resource fair is also still continuing at this time, so if you'd like to go check out any of our wonderful tabling groups, please feel free to check that out as well. With that, we'll now get into the first question. I have to find the question first. One moment. Okay, it says, as an Iranian American, I believe war is not a solution for Iran nuclear crisis. Supporting people of Iran in their organized democracy movement to do regime change is the best option. What is your outlook and position on this issue?
As you know, I've signed on to your letters for years. I support your position. We want peace in the Middle East. It's just a horrible situation with thousands of years of difficult relations. So we're going to meet because I want to go over the wording in the new resolution. But you know we've had a long and wonderful relationship. So I support your efforts to bring democracy to the Middle East and specifically to Iran.
Thank you so much, Congressman. You always help us. All these years you're supporting us. I really appreciate it. And for years we are telling that the war is not a solution.
Great. Appreciate it. So for people who may be watching on television, one of the reasons we do it this way is to facilitate people to feel and be able to hear all of us who are talking. It's not to inhibit any kind of conversation, but we'll continue. And yes, I support your efforts. We want peace in the Middle East. What's happening in the Middle East right now is awful, awful, awful. Having been there multiple times. One of the things I always say about the Middle East as a American and somebody, although I grew up on the East, I've lived in the West in California. You can understand it intellectually, but when you go there, the concentration both physically, geographically, and historically is unlike anything. We can everything's so close, and the history is so long that it's a very unique region of the world, and it's a wonderful region of the world, but it's part of the challenges. And it's hard for Americans to fully understand that until you engage with individuals like yourself and from differing opinions. So thank you.
Thank you. The next question says, did FEMA provide help for the LA fires? Is FEMA grant for fire prevention in East Bay Regional Parks in danger? What can we do?
Do you want to take some of that, John? I'll start. No and yes. So the administration was very forthcoming for the floods in Texas, but not for the fires in California. I'm going to go down to look at the fires during this break, meet with my good friend, the current mayor. We served together in the legislature, and we became friends. Karen Bass, she's had a tough job, and she's a terrific, terrific person and legislator. But this is really egregious. This has been a completely nonpartisan issue with grants for emergencies in the history of the grants, and it's really an awful thing that we politicize these things. Not we, but this administration is. So we're going to continue to advocate for it. We believe we will get the funds, but we're going to have to keep fighting for them. And the fact that we've just gone through this, we need to get those grants to every part of the country, irrespective of their political affiliation. We're Americans, and in crisis, we've always supported other Americans. But we're not doing that right now.
I don't really have anything substantial to add except to say thank you, Congressman, for that. That we have a legislative affairs team at the Park District, and they're always working on this particular item and many others. And so it's a multi-pronged approach, I think, that we're doing to try to guard these funds.
Thank you both. This next one's sort of a three-part question. It says, my friends and I go to demonstrations, but what really gets the attention of leaders in D.C.? What are you working on a bipartisan basis that gives you hope? And what happened to that immigration bill that was killed a year ago?
On the latter, let me stand up for this one. This is a lot of good journalism on immigration in this country right now. Steve Bannon specifically, and people like him in the first administration, they did an old playbook in America. We went through this when the Irish and the Italians, I'm mostly Irish, French too, people in politics divided us. And now they're doing it again. Mr. Bannon is an expert at this. And again, there's a lot of good writing on this. You don't have to take my word for it. Of course, there's different perspectives on it, but they're dividing us. And I'll just point to three pieces of legislation, starting with the best one. There was a bill in the session just before I got there when Congressman Miller, my predecessor, was there, that came out of the Senate with almost 70 votes. It was bipartisan. John McCain and the current Secretary of State were two of the leading Republicans. Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin, the two leaders of the Democrats, were 4 of the 8. It created a pathway to citizenship, 20 years. If you worked and you didn't have any legal problems, you could apply for and continue to go in. It put more money on the border, get out of the Senate, and John Boehner was Speaker. You can go to his autobiography, and he describes this. So it's not just liberals, progressives saying what happened. And the head of the Freedom Caucus went in and begged him not to bring it to the floor because they didn't want to vote for it. Mark Meadows, a person I served with and was Trump's chief of staff in the first administration. So they never brought it to the floor, which is up to the Speaker. It's a bad rule. In other legislative bodies, there are rules that say when a bill like this gets goes through Ledge Council and it's legal and constitutional, you have to have a hearing in the Rules Committee. Congress does it a different way, and it puts too much power in the Speaker's office. I'd like to change that. So that died. There have been three subsequent ones, all met the same fate when they were in charge. We should have pushed harder when the first 2 years of the Biden administration, when we had control of both houses and we had the White House. The problem, to be quite frank, is there are 25 seats that determine who's in charge of the House of Representatives, and the people in those areas, we risk losing that vote if we're not careful about how we present these things. So we're going to keep working at it. We have bills that are written right now that if they would let us, we would bring to the floor and force a vote at least, so people can see where individual members stand. So on immigration, that's it. On fighting, we've gotten much better at it. I've said this, we weren't prepared for this, and I'll say that personally for me, and I think the Democrats, weren't prepared. We went through the first 4 years and it was awful. We ramped up. We and our colleagues outside won 78% of the challenges to things he did. We are now at 97%. And if you have any questions about that, there's a great group that organizes this. It's a nonpartisan, bipartisan nonprofit, but in this instance, they've been bringing actions against the administration. It's called Democracy Forward. So look them up in real time. They'll tell you where the courts are, the cases are, and we've won 97% of the cases that we brought against the administration. So we've been very successful in the courts, and a lot of those are environmental cases, but they're everything. And then we just have to keep fighting, folks. I'm not going to understate how dangerous this is. As far as working with the Republicans, I followed my mentor, Tom Torlick's mentors, George Miller. George was, like me, one of the most progressive members of Congress. But he realized he had to get things done. So he would work with people like Virginia Fox. There's a famous picture of George Miller with Representative Don Young, very conservative Republican, had the same personality as George, so it's amazing they never got in a fist fight, but they came close. He was from Alaska. They were ranking and chair of the Resources Committee for years on biodiversity issues, and the Endangered Species Act is a famous picture of them, the two of them smiling when they came to an agreement on the Endangered Species Act. So those are examples where even though we fight and we have strong differences, we have to represent the whole country. So we're trying to do that, but I will tell you in my 35 years in elected office. By the way, John and I both have the distinction of being former Concord planning commissioners. So he has a better career. He got to the East Bay Regional Park District. I got to the Board of Supervisors and then moved on. But these moments where we have to keep fighting and be principled, but try to get the other side to come forward. And I'll tell you, it's been really hard. January 6th was an awful day for this. I was one of, if not the last member of Congress, evacuated from the House of Representatives. And then we came back after that horrible thing, and 120 of my colleagues voted not to certify a presidential election that almost all of them knew was legal. And I had multiple conversations with colleagues on the other side, and they were fairly emotional about how could you do that on that day. So we're in a historic period where we've just got to keep being principled, but understanding that the vision of this country is we're a country with a lot of people and a lot of different views, but we have to respect those different views while we fight and are principled for our own views. And it's a real challenge right now, I'll be quite honest. But we're going to keep doing it. We do it in the Congress. We do it on the streets. If I have time, I'll be down in Walnut Creek at the demonstration there that I've been to almost every week since we started. So we've got to do it on the streets, legally, lawfully. We've got to do it in the courts. We've got to do it in Congress. And we have to do it in elections. Elections matter. So 2/3 of the eligible voters in the last election cycle didn't vote for Democrats. And that's fine. You can vote for Republicans if you feel that way, but you got to vote, folks. We're citizens of the longest lasting democracy in the history of our species. And it's a great honor to be able to vote and be a citizen of the United States. So please read your voters pamphlet. Vote in every election, from the Board of Supervisors to the East Bay Regional Park District to the United States Congress and President. That's how we get through these things. Sorry to get on my soapbox.
Thank you, Congressman. Next question is, on top of other things, the genocide and war in Gaza is a disaster for the environment. What is your plan to stop it?
I was one of the first members who signed on to a ceasefire, recognizing that what happened on October 7th was the genesis of all this. So I've been very active in saying we've got to have a ceasefire. We've got to hold people accountable for what happened on October 7th and also everything that's happened since. So we have to do that, and we have to stick with it. What's happening is awful, and it's got to stop. And this is one of the most binary issues in the history of this planet, so we can't simplify how difficult it is, but this is not acceptable, and I've been a very strong advocate for an immediate ceasefire and holding people accountable on both sides who are responsible for defying both international law but also ethical and moral behavior.
Thank you. Outside of the tax credits and subsidies being available, what do you see as the biggest negative impact to California environmental work? And what can the state do to step in?
Well, I'd love to hear the Air District's point. So the U.S. Clean Air Act, signed by Richard Nixon, the California Clean Air Act, signed by Governor Ronald Reagan, bipartisan effort. It's one of that and the U.S. Clean Air Act, similarly bipartisan, are two of the great environmental pieces of legislation certainly in the history of the United States. They've done so much good, but they're under attack right now. Very serious attack. So what they put in the big ugly bill and what they continue to do, they had another effort. They tried to kill what's called the California waiver. It's been very successful, and the Air District can speak to this more specifically, but these are all under attack. And it's really bad for your public health, for the environment, but also the U.S. economy. Having been involved in air quality for a long time, having been to China and Japan to talk to auto manufacturers, to every auto manufacturer in the United States and Europe, the Chinese are killing it on alternative fuels. We used to be, but the Republicans are just going all on fossil fuels. My analysis is let them compete. Let them compete on full analysis of what the costs are and what the benefits are. And when you do that in the long run, and historically subsidies, alternative fuels and renewables are subsidized to a large degree right now, but so have fossil fuels been when they were being developed. They're harder to measure because we didn't have the measurements when they started. So, for instance, in China now they have over 3 million charging stations. You can buy the equivalent of a Tesla S for $10,000 in China, and they're selling like crazy. They're about to surpass General Motors and Toyota, both of them, Toyota, for the largest car manufacturing company in the world. And I tell my Republican friends, your kids and your grandkids are going to be driving Chinese cars because Americans aren't being competitive. And to some degree, it's happening with the Japanese too. So these are really serious threats, and they're really stupid for the environment's future and our economy. We're not going to be able to compete. If you want to compete with China, which my Republican friends say they want to, you're ceding competition for one of the most important parts of an economy, transportation, to the Chinese, because you're not developing alternatives for Americans to purchase. And one thing we should be really part of in the Bay Area, and the car companies know this, we have, the last few years, 25% of the new cars in the San Francisco Bay Area have been mostly electric, because there are fuel cell cars out there, but not many of them. But they're these new clean energy cars. So we lead the country in the marketplace of new ideas, and we buy these products and lease them.
Thanks, Congressman. The Congressman talked about the Clean Air Act, so I won't reiterate what he said, the importance of that. But there are 35 air districts in California, and we're charged with ensuring that we are enforcing the Clean Air Act, that we are coming into attainment with the requirements of the state implementation plans and scoping plans for clean air through CARB. I mentioned that CARB, the Congressman was a part of it. CARB regulates the mobile sources of pollution. So we regulate the stationary sources, CARB regulates the mobile sources, and together, in working with CARB, we're able to improve air quality. But it's so critical at the local level, that we work with the state on legislation that helps to reduce emissions. Chief among them is the AB 617 program that many of you may have heard of. It's funded through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, Cap and Trade, now known as Cap and Invest, as announced by Governor Newsom. But through that program, hundreds of millions of dollars have been sent from the state to local communities like the ones in the Bay Area to reduce emissions and be community driven. In addition to the incentive funding that we get from the state program, we also have community emissions reductions plans that are led by communities, not by the Air District. We facilitate the conversation, but we hear directly from communities. And so in the Bay Area Air District, we have 4 AB 617 communities, one in Richmond, North Richmond, and San Pablo in Contra Costa County. We have 2 in Alameda County, one in West Oakland, the other in East Oakland, and then finally we have one in San Francisco City and County at Bayview Hunters Point. And these programs are led by community members. They're led by the communities most overburdened by air pollution, and they're leading these initiatives. We're facilitating them, but we're providing them the resources, providing the information on the toxic air contaminants and the criteria air pollutants, but it's really community driven. And so again, a program like AB 617 that's funded by the state is critical. And we also pushed for legislation a few years ago, and we met with the congressman, as well as Congressman Garamendi and others in our Bay Area delegation to talk with them about Assembly Bill 1465, which was authored by Assemblymember Buffy Wicks and supported by everyone in the Bay Area delegation, including the congressman, and that is to raise the penalty ceilings, maximum penalties for refineries. We have the 5 large refineries in the Bay Area. For the first time in over 20 years, we're able to triple the maximum penalties to the refineries. But I want to say one thing that I was remiss in not saying earlier, is that all the work that we do at the Air District, in addition to with community, we also work with the industry. We work with the people that work at the refineries. We have a refinery technical working group that is working on amending and reviewing our flaring rules, and it's something where we're working with the industry. Mr. Schoenfeld in the back is here from Phillips 666, and he's on the Refinery Technical Working Group, and he works side by side with community members, with the Local 5, Union United Steelworkers Local 5, and we're talking about these rules before they're even written. Right, we're hearing from industry, hearing from the workers, hearing from the community, and through that collaboration, and with Contra Costa Health as well, we're working with the Contra Costa County Health Department and Hazmat to ensure that we're hearing directly from and partnering with the communities that we serve.
Just a couple comments on this, just because I've spent a lot of time on this. We were able to get millions of dollars when we were in charge with a bill that became a part of our major appropriations in the Congress to allow for millions of dollars for local communities, and Contra Costa specifically got a grant that Supervisor Joya from West County and former Supervisor Glover were the lead on, but I was able to get millions of dollars. There's still grant money in there on the transition. So we know as fuels change, we want to work with energy companies. You can't shut them down right away. It's a fifth of the U.S. economy. You've got to be smart about this. You've got to encourage, like with Phillips, to invest in renewables and fuels that contribute to the economy and our energy needs, but also contributes to our public health issues and our environmental issues. So that transition is to work with the steelworkers and the building trades who have jobs there. And those 5 refineries, 4 in Contra Costa, are also from a funding point for school districts and for local government, the 4 of the 10 largest tax contributors to our base. So we've got to be smart about how we transition on multiple levels. And I have to say, I'm really proud of what the county's doing. Only Chevron and Richmond is in a city. The other 3 are in Contra Costa, Valero's in Solano County, and Benicia. But we're leading the country in trying to figure out how we transition, but work with companies who want to work with us and be energy companies as opposed to just fossil fuel companies. And Phillips is one of them, changing to biodiesel. So a lot of this stuff. And those 4 refineries in Contra Costa, when I was on the board, they, I think the number was about 20% of all the CARB-certified gasoline in the state came from those, and I think about half of the diesel fuel. So they're important. But we're being thoughtful about transitioning, and to be honest, we're pushing. And I'm proud of the fact when I was in the Air District, I have Not so subtle copy of the front page story in the New York Times about a refinery flare rule that I did with the district a long time ago, 20 years ago, to stop flaring. And it's really contributed to public health, and it's made the operations, with some of the people in the industry I disagreed with at the time, I always said, well, if you're not flaring, you're more profitable. So, and I would argue that generally that's true. They're for emergencies, and now they're used for that. And in the past, emergencies were, in my view, not properly defined. So a lot of good work by the Air District. And Contra Costa gets, by statute, so the Clean Air Act requires these air districts, requires a state air district. So it comes from federal law, state law, and then local law. Contra Costa has, by statute, when I was there, 3 representatives. It's based on population. So 2 city representatives and 1 county representative. Do we have more now?
We have 4 now,
so-
but 2 from the county. Yeah, that's correct, Congressman. So it's County Supervisor John Joya, County Supervisor Ken Carlson, and then at the city level, it's Vice Mayor of Pittsburgh, Dion Adams, Mayor Pro Tem of El Cerrito, Gabe Quinto. And I want a correction, it's Mr. Schoenthal, not Mr. Schoenfeld. So, thanks, Dave.
And on these and all these issues, one of the great things we have right now is the internet, and it's also a curse in many ways, but you can go to all these organizations, myself, and you can do research on this. So people will say, well, why do we have to change our gas stove? It's always been fine. Well, we make progress, and you can question that progress, but they have all kinds of, you can go to the research that's been, and you can question it, but at least avail yourself of the opportunity. And I know most of the people here will, but there's lots of opportunities if you disagree with us to be able to go and see the reasoning now because of what all of these organizations put on their website.
And to your point, Congressman, about the technologies and the data today, right? For years, we've been saying that the #1 source of emissions comes from tailpipes from cars, right? And so we've been using that in all of our talking points. Well, earlier this year, we're putting together a press release, and I said, let's put in that talking point. It's no longer the case because of all the advent of technology and EV, that now the #1 source is no longer tailpipe emissions. So that's incredible, but it validates the Congressman's point.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have today for questions. As a reminder, as long as we have your contact information, we will be sure to respond to you later after the event. I'll now turn it back over to Congressman DeSonia for closing
I
remarks.
hate this when this happens. I'm sorry I talked so much. I would have been happy to hear your opinions in the Middle East, particularly you, John. But let's really give a round of applause to our wonderful panelists who didn't get a chance to talk to you. These are great. You know, there's been a lot of, unfortunately, lately about people who are in public service. I hear from federal employees all the time. There's a lot of value in public servants. Of course, in large organizations, you're going to get great people, and you're going to get, as somebody who's managed people since I was 22 years old in the private sector and the public sector, we get a lot of value. And these 3 people right here and the organizations they're part of, I'm very grateful as a taxpayer that we have them in the roles they're in. So, any questions you have, please avail yourself. We'll be around for a little while, so can answer more questions. And then one last time, speaking of public servants, if we could just give Tom Torlakson a grateful round of applause. That guy spent more time in public meetings than anybody here right now. So thank you, Tom. Thanks so much. Thank you all.